Hello, you're all very welcome to this training session on display screen equipment, and sometimes they refer to that as visual display equipment, but essentially they're the same thing. So the way that we work has greatly changed over the years, from office presence to now blended work, and the likes of the devices that we use as well. That's greatly changed because now we're using smartphones, touch screens, laptops, desktop monitors, and it's constantly changing. So the aim of this course here today is to provide you with the information on how you can work safely so that you're comfortable. We want to avoid things like musculoskeletal disorders developing, and they are classed as injuries or pain in the joints, ligaments, muscles, nerves, tendons, and structures that support the limbs, neck, and back. What we're going to focus on as part of this training here today is to look at the issues to make sure that our workstations are set up correctly so that we can work comfortably. Simple little measures like setting up our workstation correctly, it's going to greatly reduce the risk of discomfort or injury occurring. So the time to look after our health is before issues start, not after. And this training aims to make you aware of the negative impacts of poor display screen equipment setup and the measures that you need to take to reduce the risk of you developing injury. In this session, we're going to go through these simple measures that we need to take to reduce the chance of injury occurring and how to set up our workstations correctly. The objective of this training is to cover three key points. So we often see people slouching at their desks. Sure, we might even do it ourselves from time to time at work or at home. But when we do, it puts additional stress and strain on the body. And those additional pressures can cause issues like we see here, the picture of the person slouching on the chair or the person hunched over the desk. We need to address these issues before they start to cause problems by making sure that our workstations are set up correctly. So over the next few slides, we're going to look at the effects of poor display screen equipment setups and how we can adjust our workstations to reduce the chance of developing musculoskeletal issues. It's important each one of us who's a designated display screen user, and by that I mean anyone who uses DSE equipment for more than an hour or more at a time per day, an assessment needs to be carried out to identify issues so they can be addressed. So a DSE assessment that needs to be carried out by a competent person, and it just helps identify issues so that actions can be taken. Often simple measures, they make a big difference, such as the likes of adjusting a chair correctly. So many people sit in a chair, but they never adjust it as they're not too sure how to do it. So we're going to address that here today. And on occasion then professional advice might be needed from an ergonomist. And that's just someone that looks at the relationship between people, their workplace and equipment in order to suggest improvements for comfort and productivity. So now, why should we really manage display screen equipment? Well, when we talk about health and safety in the workplace, especially around the area of display screen equipment, there's three real key reasons why it really matters. So first we got the moral one. So good DSE, it aims to help prevent pain and suffering. None of us want to experience those effects. They can come about from poor workstation setup like the likes of musculoskeletal disorders. But by having a competent person carrying out a display screen equipment risk assessment, we can cut down the risks such as eye strain, headaches and musculoskeletal problems before they start in the first place. Then secondly, there's the legal reason. So under the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work General Application Regs, Chapter 5, Part 2, employers, they've got a legal duty to protect staff who work with screens. And what that means is assessing DSE workstations to identify risks, providing them with information and training, ensuring that they're properly set up, that they've planning their work to include breaks or changes of work activity, that we're offering eyesight tests and providing corrective appliances like the likes of glasses if they're needed specifically for display screen equipment work. So we'll go into this in more detail as we make our way through the presentation. Then finally we've got the financial reason. So if it's a correctly set up DSE station, it just means fewer staff are going to be off work with back pain or repetitive strain injuries, etc. And that means reduce absences, lower turnover and less cost. We see at the bottom of the slide here, we've got a link to the Health and Safety Authority on DSE guidance. And it's really good. It just breaks down the regulations into simple, easy to understand guidance that uses common language without the legal jargon, which can be confusing at times. So the document just helps keep things as simple as possible so we can all understand. It's just clear, concise information, just making it easier for us all. We already know that the likes of slouching isn't good for our posture. And I'm sure a lot of us were reminded at school, stand up straight, no slouching in your desks, that type of thing. So we see an image here of someone just sitting at a standard meeting room chair. So we don't need to be an expert at all looking at it to know it's far from an ideal setup. We can see it's a standard chair with the knees being used as an improvised desk. And I'm sure all of us have done it at some time or another. But when we look at it in detail, we see there's very little support to the legs. There's a greater curvature to the spine due to the lack of a desk. And this type of setup, it'll have an effect on the body over time. So there's multiple health issues associated with poor display screen equipment, such as neck, the likes of back, shoulder, wrist, leg pain, eye strain, fatigue, etc. So when we slouch or improvise our workstation, it can cause strain on the muscles, ligaments and tendons, which, as we mentioned earlier, that's referred to as musculoskeletal injuries. So the height of the screen is an issue here. So constantly looking down, that's going to result in potential neck strain. So when we're sitting at our desks, the toolbar of the screen should be roughly in line with the pupils and the screen at an arm's length away. But we'll see over the next few slides the ideal setup and how we go about achieving it. I can't stress how important it is that our workstation is set up correctly. Often we hear the likes of the terms, work-related upper limb disorders, musculoskeletal injuries, repetitive stress injuries, but they all amount to more or less the same thing. Pain and suffering and discomfort, and none of us want to go through any of that. But we can reduce the risk of it happening by carrying out some simple steps. We see here they've mentioned here tendinitis, and that affects the tendons and it causes painful swelling and impaired function, and it often affects the wrists when it's associated with display screen equipment. Also, we've got carpal tunnel syndrome, which is compression of the medial nerve at the carpal tunnel in the wrist, and it can lead to numbness, tingling and severe pain when pressure is applied. And the treatment is typically a splint, surgical intervention or corticosteroid injections. Women can especially suffer pain or weakness in the wrist during pregnancy, and that's usually during the later months, and that's caused by fluid retention. So it just puts more pressure on the carpal tunnel. Then we've got postural problems. That can also be an issue if we remain sitting for long periods of time. So sitting can cause problems, and it's become more and more common as we're physically inactive. For some jobs, they can result in us sitting for 7 to 8 hours a day, and that's going to cause issues. So the position, it increases the load on your spine more than standing. So spinal pressure sits at about 140 kgs of intradiscal pressure. And that's the pressure inside the intervertebral disc. And that's the bit between the bony bits called the vertebrae, which we see here on the lumbar area of the spine. Then if we slouch, the spinal pressure, it increases again up to 185 kgs of pressure. Add a bit more weight and you're up to a whopping 275 pounds of pressure on your spine. So it's important to get up occasionally to get a cup of tea or photocopying, whatever it might be, just to make sure that we get a break away from our workstation. So the main point here is if we adopt the correct posture by having our workstation set up correctly, then it's going to reduce the pressure on our spine and the lumbar area significantly. So what are the risks to people who regularly use workstations? So incorrect use or poorly designed workstations or work environments, that can lead to issues as mentioned earlier, such as injuries to the nerves, the muscles and the tendons in the fingers, hands, wrists, arms, elbows, shoulder and neck. And if they're ignored, they might lead to long-term damage, but the risk is reduced by ensuring that our workstations are set up. So that's the good news. So the main factors that can contribute to musculoskeletal problems are a poor ergonomic setup. And that's the first time we've mentioned ergonomics. And it's the study of people at work that aim to reduce the physical stress and injuries associated with working, such as poor posture and more serious musculoskeletal disorders. So long periods of time on screens, sure, it can be visually demanding, and long spells of DSE use can lead to tired eyes, discomfort, temporary short-sightedness and headaches. It can also make someone aware of eyesight problems that they might not have noticed before, and we'll look at that more in an upcoming slide. There's also mental stress, and that makes muscles and soft tissues tense up. And when they're tense, they're more likely to be injured. So both physical and social stressors at work, they may contribute to this process. This is one of the key reasons to take short breaks away from the screen. So a simple break can make a big difference. And this could be something as simple as making a cup of tea to just break the cycle and give the mind something different to focus upon. We mentioned the various upper limb disorders that we can experience from not having our workstations set up correctly. And there's legislation in place and there's guidance available there from the Health and Safety Authority just to make sure that we're working comfortably. But we also need to consider eye strain and fatigue. But the good news is it can be managed. So that's the good thing. So the first thing to address is the myth that DSE causes eyesight problems. That's not the case at all, but it can highlight existing weaknesses within the eye. So you might experience eye fatigue, red or sore eyes, and headaches from using your computer. So eye fatigue can cause you to adopt awkward postures, which may cause additional discomfort. So eye strain and fatigue, it's reduced by having your screen well positioned, suitable lighting conditions, and taking regular breaks away from the screen. It's known that we typically blink about 15 times a minute, but we only blink about 5 to 7 times a minute. It's a massive difference when we're using computers and other digital screen type devices. So blinking is the eye's way of getting the moisture it needs onto the surface. So try and make a conscious effort to blink as often as possible to lubricate the eye, so keeping the surface of your eyes from drying out, and as a result your eyes won't feel as tired. We can manage it though by taking some simple measures. Look away from your monitor at regular intervals, refocus on far objects or close objects to exercise the muscles in the eye, and that'll help prevent eye strain. And then there's the 20-20-20 rule, and it's a good routine and it encourages the user to look up from the screen at something that's roughly 20 feet away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes. So frequently practicing this exercise, it just gives the user's eyes a chance to relax and prevents them from being strained. So we need to make a conscious decision to blink. And I've seen someone in the past have a little note on their screen, remember to blink, just as a reminder. And it's not a bad idea at all. Or take a break away from the activity for a few minutes. It can make all the difference. Eyesight test then. So employees designated as display screen equipment users are those who use DSE equipment for more than an hour or more per day. So they are entitled to payment for eye tests, and your company will have a set procedure in place for this. So your company will have allowances available to all employees for eyesight tests and costs for lenses if they're solely required for display screen equipment use. If the user already requires glasses for an existing eye defect that's not related to DSE, such as they require glasses for reading, they'll need to bear the cost themselves. So a question I sometimes get asked is, can we claim for contact lenses? Unfortunately, currently there's no provision within the regulations for contact lenses. So now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the area of DSE. Here we see a typical user that's not set up correctly at all. We can clearly see there's issues such as poor posture. The key indicators are rounded shoulders, causing strain on the thoracic spine, and that's the middle section of your spine made up of 12 vertebrae. The head is nodded down, and that's loading the muscles in the back of the neck and the cervical section. And this is a result of having the monitor at the incorrect height. The elbows as well, you notice that there's trapped nerves and tendons against the desk, and this is creating a pressure point on that area, and that's going to lead to pain, numbness or tingling in the affected area. The chair is not providing any back support. The monitor height is not correct for the user, as we said, and all of these factors, they can be changed so the user can work comfortably. And that's what we're going to focus on, is showing you how to adjust your display screen equipment so that it suits you. You'd be surprised how many people I've visited over the years and I've heard them say they have no idea at all how to adjust their chair. So we're going to address that in the next module. I want everyone by the end of this session to be able to set up their workstations so it fits them so that they can work comfortably. If we think of the user on the previous slide and look at the way the workstation was set up, we noticed a number of issues. We noticed the impact the height of the screen had on the user's posture, especially around the cervical, the neck area and thoracic area, the middle and the lumbar area, the lower area of the back. So when we're sitting correctly, the monitor toolbar should be in line with the pupils, and this helps put the spine into its normal S-type curvature. As we can see here, that greatly reduces the amount of strain placed on the body, which can be high. We've seen earlier normal sitting pressure can be about 140 kg spinal pressure and slouched 185 kgs of pressure. It's a significant strain on the body. It's important to take the time to set up correctly to reduce the pressure on the body, and subsequently we'll be more comfortable. Thank you for completing Module 1, which looked at the issues that can arise from having display screen equipment poorly set up. Remember, your comfort is very important, and you can make small changes yourselves that are going to make a big difference. For expert training tailored to meet your needs, please contact Safety First Solutions. When it comes to safety, we deliver practical training. Contact us to ensure compliance with the DSE and further measures you can take to reduce the risks from workplace injuries.